Dawn breaks over Beersheba, and a weathered hand traces names on ancient parchment, a genealogy that shaped empires. The finger pauses. One name sits alone, half faded by time. KETURAH. The hand trembles, then circles it slowly. History remembers Sarah, the barren woman who laughed at God and bore the impossible son. History celebrates Isaac, the child of promise, the living miracle. But there was another woman who sat beside the father of faith in his final decades, and her name has been buried under 3,000 years of silence. What do you do when God keeps his promise? But the story doesn't end. When the miracle child is grown, the beloved wife is in the tomb, and the patriarch of nations is still breathing, still building altars, still waiting for something he can't name. Why did the man who waited a century for one son suddenly father 6 more? What nation rose from this forgotten union that would one day reshape the ancient world? And why did Scripture hide her in plain sight, calling her a concubine when she was actually his wife? In the next hour, you'll discover a love story the Bible whispered, a lineage that changed warfare forever, and a theological mystery that redefines what it means to be chosen by God. If you sense there's more to this story than you've been told, subscribe and turn on the bell. The tent of Abraham sits smaller now, quieter than it has been in decades. 25 years have passed since Sarah's death, and the camp at Beersheba feels like an echo of what it once was. Servants move with reverence rather than urgency, their footsteps soft on ancient ground. The laughter that once filled these spaces, Sarah's sharp wit, her bright defiance, has faded into memory, leaving only the whisper of wind through worn fabric. Abraham sits alone near the altar stone, the place where everything almost ended, where the knife rose, where Isaac closed his eyes, where God's voice split the sky and a ram appeared in the thicket. His hand rests on the stone now, fingers tracing the bloodstains that never fully washed away. The stone is cold, empty. He is 140 years old. His beard is white as desert salt, his hands marked by a lifetime of altar building and tent pegging and covenant cutting. The promise has been fulfilled. Isaac lives. Isaac has married. The line continues. Everything God said would happen has happened. So why does his chest feel hollow? Why does he wake in the night reaching for something that isn't there? The sound of footsteps breaks his reverie. Eliezer enters, his oldest servant, the one who once thought he might inherit everything before Isaac was born. Dust covers his cloak. He's been traveling. His face is tight with concern. "Master," Eliezer says carefully, "the northern clans are asking questions. They want to know who speaks for you now in matters of trade and treaty. Isaac tends his flocks in the Negev, far from here. Ishmael is in Paran, building his own people. The covenant needs a presence, your presence. But you've been," he trails off, unwilling to say the word, "absent." Abraham doesn't answer. His gaze remains fixed on the altar stone, his mind somewhere else entirely. Eliezer shifts uncomfortably, waiting. Finally, Abraham speaks, his voice low and distant. "The promise was fulfilled, Eliezer. God gave me a son. Sarah bore Isaac. The nations will come through him. It's finished." But even as he says it, the words feel wrong in his mouth. Eliezer watches his master with sad, knowing eyes. "Then why, my lord, do you still sit here every morning, staring at the place where it almost ended? Why do you still build altars when the promise has come?" Abraham has no answer. The silence stretches, heavy and thick until, "Because a finished promise doesn't mean a finished life, my lord." The voice comes from the tent entrance, low and steady, unafraid. Both men turn sharply. A woman stands there, framed by morning light. She is not young, not a girl, not a maiden in the first blush of youth. She is a woman of years, perhaps 50 or 60, with the kind of beauty that has survived time rather than surrendered to it. Her bearing is regal, her eyes dark and deep, holding something that looks like grief understood and metabolized into wisdom. She carries a water jar on her shoulder, but she stands like a queen. Abraham stares. Something in his chest shifts, not the flutter of romance, but the deeper shock of recognition, as if he's seen her before, as if he's been waiting for her without knowing it. Eliezer finds his voice first. Who are you? How did you enter this camp? The woman sets down the water jar with careful grace. I came with the caravan from the east 3 days ago. I've been serving among the maidservants, watching, listening. No one asked my name. No one thought to... That's not an answer, Eliezer says sharply. The woman's gaze doesn't leave Abraham. My name is KETURAH. I came because I heard that a man once walked away from everything he knew because an invisible God spoke to him, and that God answered. I've spent my life wondering if such a thing is real, if faith is more than ritual, more than the fire and the blood and the fear. I don't want your wealth, Abraham. I don't need your status. She pauses, and her voice drops to something almost vulnerable. I need to know if what you carry is true. The words land like stones in deep water, rippling outward. Abraham feels something crack open inside him, some sealed place he thought had closed forever when Sarah died. This woman isn't flattering him. She isn't performing. She's asking the question his own soul has been whispering in the dark. Is God still here? Is there still more? Eliezer steps forward, protective. Master, you don't know this woman. She could be... Abraham raises a hand, silencing him. His eyes haven't left KETURAH's face. You've seen grief, he says quietly. It's not a question. Yes, KETURAH answers. And you've run from something. Her jaw tightens. Yes. And you came here because you thought, what? That an old man's faith could save you. KETURAH's eyes flash. No. I came because I thought an old man's faith could teach me. There's a difference. For the first time in years, Abraham feels something like a smile tug at the corner of his mouth. Sarah used to speak like this, direct, unafraid, cutting through pretense like a blade through silk. He stands slowly, his joints protesting, and takes a step closer. Then stay, not as a servant, not as... My lord, Eliezer interrupts, his voice urgent now. The camp will talk. Lady Sarah's memory is still fresh. To bring another woman here, into her tent so soon after. 25 years, Eliezer, Abraham says quietly. It's been 25 years. To those who loved her, it feels like yesterday. Abraham knows he's right. He can already hear the whispers that will start, the glances, the judgment. Isaac will hear of it in the Negev. Isaac, who still mourns his mother with a grief so deep it has made him silent and distant. Isaac, who looks at Abraham sometimes as if he's already mourning him too. But something in Abraham's chest is beating again, some pulse of life he thought had stopped. He looks at KETURAH. You said you wanted to know if faith is real. If you stay, you'll find out. But it won't be easy. The God I serve, he asks for everything. KETURAH meets his gaze without flinching. I know. That's why I came. Eliezer opens his mouth to protest again, but Abraham raises his hand. Let her stay. Give her a tent. Let her rest. We'll speak again in the morning. As KETURAH turns to leave, Abraham notices something, etched faintly on the side of her water jar, barely visible, is a symbol he hasn't seen in decades. A circular mark with radiating lines, like a sun or a fire. The mark of Midian. His blood goes cold. Wait, he says, his voice sharp. KETURAH stops, her back still turned. That mark on your jar, where did you get it? KETURAH's shoulders tense. She doesn't turn around. It was my father's, she says quietly. Before I left. Left what? A long pause. Then, barely audible, the fire. She walks away before Abraham can ask what that means, disappearing into the maze of tents. Eliezer stares after her, then turns to Abraham with worry etched into every line of his face. "Master, what have you just invited into this camp?" Abraham doesn't answer. He's staring at the water jar she left behind, at the symbol that speaks of priests and altars and gods he's spent his life turning away from. But beneath the fear, something else stirs. Something that feels strangely like the voice that once called him out of Ur, out of everything familiar, into the unknown. "Not done yet," the voice seems to whisper. "Not finished." Abraham closes his eyes and exhales slowly. "I don't know, old friend," he murmurs, "but I think God just answered a question I didn't know I was asking." The sun climbs higher, the camp begins to stir, and in the distance, unnoticed by anyone, a handful of servants have already begun to whisper. "Did you see her? The new woman? She went straight to Abraham's tent. Who does she think she is?" The story is beginning, and no one, not even Abraham, knows how it will end. By evening, the whispers have grown teeth. The servants speak in low voices around cooking fires, their eyes darting toward the center tent where KETURAH has been given space. They're not hostile yet, just confused, unsettled. Change in a place like this, where every stone remembers Sarah's footsteps, feels like a small betrayal. One of the older women, Zilpah, who served Sarah for 40 years, wipes her hands on her apron and speaks what others are thinking. 25 years he mourned, faithful as stone. And now this, a stranger from the east. What are we supposed to make of it? Another servant, younger, shrugs. Maybe he's lonely. He's an old man. What harm is there in companionship? Zilpah's eyes flash. Companionship. You don't bring a woman into the patriarch's tent for companionship. You bring her for something else. The words hang in the air, unfinished but understood. Across the camp, in a smaller tent reserved for visiting chiefs, Shavshah, one of the clan elders who has served Abraham's interests in the northern territories, sits with two others, oil lamps flickering between them. His voice is careful, measured, the tone of a man trying to navigate dangerous ground. "I'm not saying the master has lost his mind," Shavshah says slowly. "But this is unexpected. The matriarch Sarah's memory is still sacred here. To bring another woman into the tent so soon, the elder beside him interrupts. It's been a quarter century. To us, yes, but to Isaac? To those who loved her?" Shavshah shakes his head. Grief doesn't follow calendars. The third elder, a gaunt man named Rephah, leans forward. "Has anyone told Isaac?" Silence. "Someone should," Rephah says quietly, before he hears it from traders. Before it becomes a story twisted in the telling. But no one volunteers because they all know what Isaac will say, what Isaac will feel. 3 days south, in the Negev hills, where the flocks graze on sparse grass, Isaac ben Abraham kneels beside a newborn lamb, his hands gentle as he checks its legs. It's breathing. He is 50 years old now, broad-shouldered and weathered by sun, his beard streaked with early gray. He looks like his father, same deep-set eyes, same quiet intensity, but he carries something Abraham never did. The weight of almost being sacrificed. He doesn't talk about it, but everyone who knows him sees it in the way he startles at sudden movements, the way he pauses before entering tents, the way he sometimes stares at altar smoke with an expression no one can read. A servant approaches, hesitant. Master Isaac, a messenger from Beersheba. Isaac looks up, his hands still on the lamb. "My father, he's well, my lord, but there's news of a personal nature." Isaac's jaw tightens. He sets the lamb down gently and stands, wiping his hands on his tunic. "Speak plainly." The messenger swallows. "Your father has taken a woman into his household. Her name is KETURAH. She arrived from the east." The servants say he looks at her the way he used to look at the lady Sarah. The words hit like a fist to the chest. Isaac goes very still. His face doesn't change, But something behind his eyes hardens. A door closing, a wall rising. Does he intend to marry her? The servants believe so, my lord. Isaac turns away, his voice flat. Tell my father I received the message. Tell him the flocks are well. Tell him I will visit when I can. The messenger bows and leaves quickly, sensing the storm he's unleashed. Alone now, Isaac stares out at the hills where his mother used to walk with him as a child, teaching him the names of plants, telling him stories of Ur and Haran and the long journey of faith. She died in these hills. He buried her in the cave at Machpelah with his own hands, his father weeping beside him, and now another woman. Isaac's fists clench. He knows it's not rational. He knows his father has been alone for decades. He knows grief isn't supposed to be a chain, but it feels like one anyway. It feels like his mother is being erased. Back in Beersheba, night falls. The camp settles into uneasy quiet, and Abraham sits alone under the vast sweep of stars, the same stars God once showed him, saying, "Count them if you can, so shall your offspring be." He's counted them 1,000 times since then. He never gets the same number twice. "Lord," he whispers into the darkness, "I buried her with my own hands. I loved her. I still love her. So why does my chest feel open again? Why does it feel like something unfinished is pulling at me? The stars are silent. The wind moves through dry grass." Abraham continues, his voice cracking. "Is this honor or betrayal? Am I allowed to feel this? Am I allowed to live after her?" The silence stretches long enough that Abraham almost gives up, almost rises to return to his tent. Then a memory surfaces, unbidden. Not a vision, not a voice, just a remembering. God's words from decades ago, spoken under these same stars. "I will bless you, and you will be a blessing," not past tense, not were a blessing, not became a blessing, will be, present, continuous, ongoing. Abraham exhales slowly, the breath shaking out of him. "You're not done with me. It's not a question anymore. It's a realization. The God who called him out of Ur didn't stop calling just because one promise came true. The God who renamed him father of many nations wasn't speaking only about Isaac. The word many is bigger than Abraham understood, wider, deeper. He's spent 25 years thinking the story was over. But what if it's only half written? Abraham sits with that thought until the stars wheel overhead and the camp falls into sleep. Then he rises, stiff and slow, and walks toward the tent where KETURAH is staying. She's awake. He can see the flicker of lamplight through the fabric, her shadow moving inside. He pauses at the entrance, suddenly unsure. "You can come in," her voice calls softly. "I'm decent." Abraham parts the fabric and steps inside. KETURAH sits on a woven mat, a clay cup of water in her hands. She doesn't look startled or seductive. She looks tired. Real. "You should be asleep," Abraham says. "So should you." KETURAH sets down the cup. "But neither of us can we?" Abraham lowers himself onto a cushion across from her, his knees protesting. For a long moment, neither speaks. The lamp burns low between them. Finally, KETURAH breaks the silence. "I know what they're thinking. The servants, the elders, they're wondering if I'm after your wealth, if I'm scheming for inheritance or status or some foothold in the covenant." "Are you?" Abraham asks, not unkindly. KETURAH meets his eyes. "No, I have no children. I have no clan that would benefit from my position here. I came because," she pauses, searching for words, "because I heard a story once about a man who spoke to an invisible God, and he answered. Not through fire that demanded sacrifice, not through idols that required fear, but with words, with promises, with relationship." Her voice drops. "I've spent my whole life wondering if that kind of God exists, if faith can be something other than terror and performance. I don't need your wealth, Abraham. I need to know if what you carry is real. Abraham feels something crack open inside him, some place that's been sealed since Sarah died. This woman isn't performing. She's not flattering him. She's asking the question that's been haunting him too. Is God still here? Is there still more? The servants will talk, Abraham says quietly. They already are. I know. Isaac will hear, and he will not understand. Keturah's expression softens. He thinks you're replacing his mother. I'm not. I know that. But does he? Abraham has no answer for that. The truth is, he doesn't know what Isaac thinks anymore. His son has been distant for years, polite but remote, as if grief built a wall between them that neither knows how to scale. I won't lie to you, Keturah, Abraham says. If you stay here, if this becomes what I think it might become, it will cost you. The camp will judge. My son will misunderstand. You'll be called a concubine, a scandal, a mistake. Is knowing if God is real worth that? Keturah doesn't hesitate. Yes. The simplicity of it, the clarity, takes Abraham's breath away. He looks at her, really looks at her, and sees not a replacement for Sarah, but something entirely different. Sarah was fire and laughter and fierce belief. Keturah is water and depth and quiet resilience. She doesn't erase Sarah. She echoes something Sarah taught him long ago, that God's love doesn't run dry, that blessing isn't a finite resource, that a heart can hold more than one truth at once. Abraham stands slowly. Keturah stands too. Then stay, he says, his voice steady now. Not as a servant, not as a shadow. Stay as my wife. The word lands between them like a stone dropped into still water, ripples spreading outward. Keturah's eyes widen, not with triumph, but with something closer to awe. Are you sure? No, Abraham admits, but I've never been sure of anything God asked me to do. That's what faith is. For the first time, Keturah smiles, small, fragile, real. Then yes, I'll stay. They don't embrace. They don't kiss. They simply stand there, two people scarred by life and loss, choosing to believe there's still something ahead worth walking toward. Abraham leaves her tent and steps back into the night. The stars are still burning, the wind is still moving, and somewhere in the distance he hears the sound of a servant's sharp whisper. Did you see? He was in her tent. For how long? The scandal has begun, but beneath it, quieter and deeper, something else has begun too. Something that will reshape nations. Abraham doesn't announce the marriage with trumpets or gather the elders for a formal proclamation. There is no feast, no 7-day celebration, no public vows spoken before witnesses. He simply takes Keturah's hand at morning prayer, and when the servants see it, they know. The gesture is small, but unmistakable. His fingers interlaced with hers as he lifts his face toward heaven, his voice steady as he speaks the ancient words of blessing over bread and water. Keturah stands beside him, her head covered, her posture dignified, and she does not let go of his hand even when the prayer ends. Zilpah, watching from near the cooking fires, sets down her grinding stone with a sharp crack. The younger servants glance at each other, uncertain whether to feel scandalized or moved. Shavsha, passing through the camp on his way to the northern territories, stops mid-stride and stares. Then he turns and walks away without a word, his jaw tight. The message spreads like wind through dry grass. By midday, every tent knows. By evening, the merchants in the market at Beersheba are whispering about it. By week's end, a traveler will carry the news south to Isaac's camp in the Negev. But for now, in this moment, it is simply Abraham and Keturah standing together in the early light, beginning something neither of them fully understands. The days that follow are quiet, almost ordinary. Keturah does not move into Sarah's tent. That would be too much, too soon. But she is given a place near Abraham's, close enough that their lives begin to braid together in small, inevitable ways. She learns the rhythms of his household, the way he rises before dawn to pray, the way he walks the perimeter of the camp each evening as if checking for something he can never quite find. And Abraham begins to learn her. She is not Sarah. That becomes clear immediately, and strangely, it is a relief. Sarah was a storm, bright and fierce and unpredictable, her laughter loud enough to shake tent poles, her anger just as loud. KETURAH is different. She moves like water, quiet and persistent, shaping the spaces around her without demanding attention. She listens more than she speaks. She watches. One morning, Abraham finds her at the altar he built years ago, the one on the eastern edge of camp. Her hand rests on the blackened stone, her eyes closed. He approaches slowly, not wanting to intrude. "Why do you still build altars?" she asks without opening her eyes. The promise is fulfilled. Isaac is grown. The covenant is secured. Why do you still stack stones and burn offerings? Abraham is silent for a long moment, surprised by the question. No one has asked him that in years, because, he says finally, the promise to me is fulfilled. But God said nations, plural, and I'm starting to think that word is bigger than I understood. KETURAH opens her eyes and looks at him. Her gaze is direct, unafraid. "Then let me build with you." It is a strange offer. Women do not typically build altars, but Abraham finds himself nodding, handing her a stone. Together, they add to the structure, their hands working in silence, and when they are finished, KETURAH places her palm flat on the top stone, as if sealing something. "What are you sealing?" Abraham asks. "A vow," she says quietly, "that I will not run again, that I will stay, even when it costs me." Abraham feels something shift in his chest, a recognition that this woman understands the weight of covenant in a way few do. She knows what it means to leave everything behind. She knows what it means to choose a path that offers no guarantee of comfort or safety. They stand together as the sun climbs higher, and for the first time since Sarah's death, Abraham feels something other than the ache of absence. He feels the strange, fragile hope of a new beginning. But hope, as Abraham has learned, always comes with a cost. The first cost appears 3 weeks later, delivered by a messenger on a dusty horse. The man dismounts, bows low, and hands Abraham a sealed letter. The wax bears Isaac's mark. Abraham's hands tremble as he breaks the seal. The message is brief, written in Isaac's careful, precise script. "Father, I have received word of your marriage to the woman called KETURAH. I wish you health and peace. The flocks are well. The rains have been sufficient. I will remain in the Negev for the season. Do not summon me to Beersheba. I will remember my mother in my own way." The words are polite, formal, and utterly cold. Abraham reads the letter 3 times, as if repetition might change the meaning. But the message is clear. Isaac is not coming. Isaac will not bless this union. Isaac is choosing distance. KETURAH finds him an hour later, sitting alone outside his tent, the letter still clutched in his hand. She says nothing, just sits beside him in the dust, close enough that their shoulders almost touch. "Your son will not forgive this, will he?" she asks softly. Abraham's voice is thick. He thinks I'm replacing his mother. He doesn't see that I'm honoring her. She taught me that God's love doesn't run dry, that blessing isn't a cup that empties. But Isaac, he's carried so much grief for so long, I think it's the only language he knows how to speak anymore. KETURAH reaches over and takes the letter from his hand, reads it silently. Then she folds it carefully and hands it back. "He will come," she says. "Not today, not this season, but he will come. Because you are still his father, and he is still your son. And love like that doesn't disappear. It just gets buried under fear." "How do you know?" Abraham asks, wanting desperately to believe her. "Because I ran from my father," KETURAH says. her voice steady but sad. "I left him in anger and shame, and I thought I could outrun the bond, but you can't. Blood calls to blood, pain calls to pain. Isaac will come when he's ready to face what he's afraid of." What is he afraid of? Keturah looks at Abraham with eyes that have seen too much. Losing you, the way he lost her, the truth of it lands like a stone in deep water, rippling outward. Abraham has been so focused on his own grief, on his own need to move forward, that he hasn't fully reckoned with Isaac's terror. His son almost died on an altar. Then he lost his mother. And now, in Isaac's mind, he's losing his father too, watching him turn toward a new life that doesn't include the past they shared. Abraham closes his eyes, and a single tear escapes, tracing a line through the dust on his weathered cheek. "I don't know how to hold both loves in one heart," he whispers. "I don't know how to honor Sarah and love you and keep Isaac close. It feels like every step forward is a step away from something sacred." Keturah doesn't offer easy comfort. She doesn't tell him it will be fine, that Isaac will understand, that time heals all wounds. Instead, she takes his hand and says, "Then we'll learn together." Because love isn't a betrayal of love, it's an expansion. And if God can hold all of creation in his hands, maybe he can teach us to hold more than we think we can. They sit together as the sun sets, two people choosing each other in the rubble of loss, believing that something new can grow even in scorched ground. But neither of them knows what is coming. That night, Keturah wakes in darkness, her hand instinctively moving to her belly. She lies very still, barely breathing, trying to discern if what she felt was real or imagined. Then she feels it again, a flutter, a stirring, the unmistakable sensation of life beginning where life should no longer be possible. She is past the age, far past it. Her courses stopped years ago. She has long since accepted that motherhood was not her path, that her body had closed that door. But her hand rests on her abdomen now, and she knows with sudden, absolute certainty that something impossible is happening. Her first thought is terror, her second is wonder, her third is a whispered prayer. "God of Abraham, if this is you, if this is real, then help me carry it. Help me not be afraid." She does not wake Abraham. Not yet. She needs time to understand what this means, to wrap her mind around the impossible thing taking root inside her. She thinks of Sarah, who laughed when told she would bear a child at 90. She thinks of the stories Abraham has told her, of promise and fulfillment, of waiting and wonder. And she thinks, with a strange mixture of awe and dread, that perhaps the story is not finished after all. Perhaps God is still speaking. Perhaps there is still more to come. Outside, the stars wheel in their ancient paths. The camp sleeps, and in Keturah's womb, life that should not exist begins to grow. A seed planted in impossible soil, a promise whispered in the dark. By morning, she will tell Abraham. By evening, the camp will know. And within months, the scandal will deepen into something far stranger than anyone imagined. The forgotten wife is carrying a child, and with that child, nations are about to shift. The rumors start before Keturah even shows. A servant notices she's stopped taking bitter herbs in the morning, the kind older women drink to ease the aches of aging bones. Another sees her hand rest on her belly in an unconscious gesture of protection. A third overhears her asking Zilpah, in a voice barely above a whisper, whether the camp still has the midwife who attended Sarah decades ago. By the time Keturah's belly begins to curve, barely visible beneath her robes, the whispers have already spread beyond Beersheba. Traders carry the story north to Damascus, south to Egypt, east toward the lands of Midian. Everywhere the story travels, it picks up the same tone of mockery and disbelief. Abraham the prophet, now he's Abraham the fool, 140 years old, marrying again like a young ram in spring, and they say his new wife is pregnant. At his age, at hers, it's a scandal, it's a joke. It's proof that even the great patriarch has lost his wits in his final years. In the markets, men laugh over wine. Did you hear about Abraham? Taking a wife at his age wasn't enough. Now he's trying to father children again. What's next? Will he challenge the young men to wrestling matches? The laughter is cruel, but it's also nervous. Because beneath the mockery is an uncomfortable question that no one wants to ask out loud. What if it's true? What if the God who gave Sarah a son at 90 is doing it again? What if Abraham's story isn't finished, but those questions are too dangerous, too destabilizing, so people push them away and cling to ridicule instead? Ridicule is safer than wonder. Isaac hears the mockery in the markets of Hebron when he travels there to trade wool. Two merchants are laughing near a stall of dried figs, and one of them notices Isaac passing. "That's him," one whispers loudly enough to be heard. "That's Abraham's son, the son of promise. I wonder what he thinks about his father's new family." The other merchant grins, probably wondering if his inheritance just got divided by 6. Isaac's hands ball into fists. He keeps walking, his face a mask of stone, but inside, something is cracking. The mockery of his father feels like mockery of his mother's memory. Every laugh at Abraham's expense is a knife twisting in the wound Isaac has been trying to close for 25 years. He sends no message to Beersheba. He does not congratulate his father. He does not ask about KETURAH's health or express any curiosity about the coming child. He simply retreats further into silence, tending his flocks in the southern hills, as if distance can protect him from the pain. Back in Beersheba, the camp is divided. Some of the older servants, those who remember the miracle of Isaac's birth, watch KETURAH with a mixture of awe and suspicion. Could it really be happening again? Others, especially the younger ones who never knew Sarah, see only scandal. They whisper that perhaps the child isn't Abraham's at all, that perhaps KETURAH has deceived the old patriarch, that this is all some scheme for wealth and status. KETURAH hears the whispers. She sees the way some servants avert their eyes when she passes, the way conversations stop when she enters a space. The weight of judgment presses on her like a physical thing, and some days it's hard to breathe under it. One afternoon, she sits alone in her tent, trying to write a letter to Isaac. She's attempted this before, but could never find the right words. Now, with her belly growing and the whispers intensifying, she feels an urgent need to reach the son who will not come. She labors over the parchment, her hand moving slowly, carefully. Isaac, son of Abraham, son of Sarah. I do not write to defend myself or to ask for your blessing. I write only to tell you the truth. I do not replace your mother. I could never replace her. What she built in your father's heart is permanent, carved in stone, unshakable. I honor what she began. Your father's heart is not divided by loving again. It is expanded. It is proof that the love she taught him was real, that it didn't die with her, that it grew large enough to... She stops. The words feel inadequate, clumsy. How do you explain grace to someone drowning in grief? How do you tell someone that love isn't a betrayal of love? A tear falls, landing on the parchment and smudging the ink where she wrote the word honor. She watches the black blur spread, distorting the letters, and something in her breaks. She crumples the parchment and presses it against her chest, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. How do you explain this to anyone? How do you make them understand that you didn't come to steal but to serve, that you didn't come to erase but to continue? Outside her tent, she hears voices raised in argument. She wipes her eyes and listens. It's Shavsha, the elder, speaking with sharp intensity to a group gathered near the central fire. I'm not saying Abraham has lost his prophetic calling, but this, all of this, it strains credibility. The man is ancient, his new wife is hardly young herself, and now a pregnancy. It dishonors the covenant, it dishonors Sarah's memory. Another voice, younger, more hesitant. But what if it's real? What if God is doing something we don't understand? Shavsha's response is swift and cutting. Then let him make it clear. Let him send a sign that this isn't just an old man's final folly, because right now, all I see is a camp divided, a son alienated, and a legacy being tarnished by scandal. The words cut deep. KETURAH feels them like blows. She wants to step outside, to defend herself, to explain. But what would she say? That she feels life moving inside her, that she didn't ask for this, that she's as bewildered by it as they are. She stays in her tent, hand on her belly, and prays in whispers. God of Abraham, if this is your doing, if this child is your plan, then help them see it. Help me carry the weight of their disbelief. Help me not break under it. The prayer feels fragile, barely strong enough to lift off the ground, but it's all she has. That night, Abraham finds her sitting in darkness, no lamplit, her face turned toward the tent wall. He knows immediately that she's been crying. He lowers himself beside her, his old joints creaking, and simply sits in silence for a long while. Finally, KETURAH speaks, her voice raw. They think I deceived you. They think this child isn't yours. They think I'm a schemer, a manipulator, a woman who saw an old man's loneliness and exploited it. Abraham reaches for her hand. I know what they think. Does it not anger you? It grieves me, but it doesn't surprise me. People fear what they don't understand. And this, what's happening to us, it's beyond understanding. Even I don't fully grasp it. KETURAH turns to face him, her eyes searching his in the darkness. Do you ever doubt? Do you ever wonder if we made a mistake? If this is blessing or punishment? Abraham is quiet for a long time. When he finally speaks, his voice is thick with emotion. Every day, every single day, I wonder. I wake up and think, did I mishear? Did I mistake my own loneliness for God's voice? Did I dishonor Sarah by moving forward? Then why do you keep going? Because, Abraham says slowly, doubt and faith aren't opposites. They're companions. I doubted when God told me to leave Ur. I doubted when he promised me a son. I doubted when he asked me to take Isaac up that mountain, but I went anyway. Because faith isn't the absence of doubt. It's the choice to walk forward, even when you can't see the path clearly. KETURAH feels something loosen in her chest, some knot of fear that's been tightening for weeks. You really believe this child is from God? Abraham places his weathered hand on her belly, feeling the small swell of life beneath his palm. I believe that when God gives life, it's never an accident. I believe that every breath, every heartbeat, every impossible beginning is a word spoken into the void. And I believe, he pauses, his voice breaking slightly, I believe that you and I are part of a story bigger than we can see right now. They sit together in the darkness, two people choosing to believe against the weight of mockery and doubt and grief. Outside, the camp sleeps uneasily. Inside, a child grows in impossible soil. But the hardest test is still coming. Because that night, Abraham dreams. And in his dream, God speaks for the first time in years. The voice is unmistakable, resonant, filling Abraham's sleep with presence. Through KETURAH, I will make you father of warriors, not priests like Isaac, not promise keepers, warriors. They will dwell in the east, and their arrows will never miss. They will be traders and kings, and through them nations will be shaken and shaped. Do not despise this gift, Abraham. Do not let shame silence what I am speaking. Abraham wakes with a start, his heart pounding, his skin damp with sweat. Beside him, KETURAH stirs. What is it? She asks, alarmed by the look on his face. He spoke. Abraham whispers, his voice shaking. After all these years of silence, after all these years of wondering if I was walking alone, he spoke. What did he say? Abraham turns to her, and his eyes are bright with tears. He said, "You're not a footnote. You're not a scandal. You're a chapter, a whole chapter. And this child, these children, they're part of the promise. A different part, an eastern part, but no less real. Keturah's hand flies to her belly, protective, awed. Children, plural. Abraham nods slowly. I saw them in the dream. 6 sons, 6 nations rising from your womb, warriors and traders and kings, and I saw their tents stretching east toward the sunrise, covering the lands beyond Jordan, beyond the great river, all the way to the edges of the world I know. Keturah can barely breathe. The magnitude of it is too much to hold. She's gone from being a woman with no future to being the mother of nations, and the shift is so sudden, so overwhelming, that she doesn't know whether to laugh or weep. She does both. And Abraham, ancient and weary and still capable of wonder, holds her as she shakes with the weight of impossible promise, knowing that tomorrow will bring more mockery, more doubt, more whispers. But tonight, in this moment, they have heard the voice that called the stars by name, and it has spoken their names too. The scandal isn't ending, it's deepening. But beneath the scandal, something holy is taking root. Something that will outlast every laugh, every sneer, every cruel word spoken in markets and around fires. Morning comes too soon, and with it, the birth begins. The child comes in the night, as prophets and kings so often do, arriving in darkness with only a handful of witnesses and the sound of labored breathing filling the tent. Keturah's labor is long and difficult. She is not young, her body not meant for this kind of breaking open, and there are moments when the midwife, an ancient woman named Basemath who attended Sarah decades ago, exchanges worried glances with the servants. But Keturah does not cry out. She breathes through the pain with a fierce, silent determination, as if she knows that every sound she makes will be used against her later, twisted into evidence of weakness or deception. Abraham paces outside the tent, his hands trembling, his prayers a constant murmur. He has done this before, waited outside while a woman fought to bring life into the world. But that was 75 years ago, and he was a different man then. Now he feels every one of his 140 years, feels the weight of time pressing on him like a physical force. When the baby's cry finally pierces the night, sharp and strong and undeniable, Abraham's knees buckle. He catches himself against a tent pole, tears streaming down his weathered face. Basemath emerges, her arms cradling a small, red-faced infant wrapped in clean linen. A son, she says simply, and her old eyes are bright with something that might be wonder or might be fear. She can't quite tell which. Abraham takes the child in his arms, feeling the weight of new life, the warmth of it, the impossible reality of it. The baby's eyes are closed, his tiny fists clenched, and he is unmistakably, undeniably real. His name is Zimran, Abraham says quietly, the name arriving fully formed as if it had been waiting for this moment. It means celebrated in song. Inside the tent, Keturah lies exhausted, her hair damp with sweat, her body trembling from the effort. But when they place Zimran in her arms, she looks down at him with an expression of fierce, protective love. You are here, she whispers. You are real. Let no one say otherwise. By morning, the news has spread through the camp. Abraham's new wife has given birth. The child is healthy, strong-lunged, unmistakably alive. The mockery doesn't stop, but it shifts. Now the whispers carry an undercurrent of unease. What if this is real? What if God is doing it again? But there are still those who refuse to believe, who insist the child must be someone else's, who point out that Keturah came from the east, that her past is unknown, that this entire situation is scandalous and suspicious. Shavsha, the elder, is among the doubters. He does not come to see the child. He does not offer congratulations. Instead, he gathers a small delegation and requests an audience with Abraham. They meet in Abraham's tent 3 days after Zimran's birth. The elders sit in a semicircle, their faces grave, and Shavsha speaks for them all. My lord Abraham, we have served you faithfully for many years. We have followed you through famine and war. We have honored your covenant with the Most High. But this, he gestures vaguely toward Keturah's tent. This tests the boundaries of what we can accept. Abraham's face is calm, but his eyes are steel. Speak plainly, Shavsha. The elder shifts uncomfortably. We question the wisdom of this marriage. We question the timing of this birth, and we question what it means for the covenant, for Isaac, for the promise God made to Sarah. Abraham leans forward slightly. Are you questioning God's ability to do what he has done before? We are questioning whether this is God's doing at all. Another elder interjects, his voice sharp. You are a great man, Abraham, a prophet, but you are also human, and humans, even great ones, can be deceived, can mistake desire for divine direction. The words hang in the air like smoke. Abraham feels the sting of them, the implication that he has been fooled, manipulated, led astray by loneliness or lust or senility. But instead of anger, Abraham feels a strange, deep calm settle over him. He has been here before. He has stood in front of doubters and accusers and skeptics. He has weathered mockery and disbelief, and every time, eventually, God has vindicated his own word. Let me tell you what I know, Abraham says quietly. I know that I did not seek Keturah. She came. I know that I did not plan this child. God gave him. I know that you doubt, and I understand why, because what is happening here makes no sense by human logic. An old man and an aging woman producing life. It sounds like madness. It sounds like delusion. He pauses, letting the silence settle. But I have learned over 140 years of walking with the God who calls things that are not as though they were, that his ways are not our ways, that he delights in using the foolish to confound the wise, that he takes what is dead and breathes life into it, not because it makes sense, but because he can. Shavsha's jaw tightens, and what of Isaac? What of the son of promise? Does this new family not diminish his inheritance, his position? Abraham's voice hardens. Isaac carries the covenant of blessing. That has not changed. That will never change. But God is larger than one lineage. He is making me the father of many nations, not just one. Keturah's sons will carry a different promise. Not the promise of land and altar, but the promise of presence, of spreading, of filling the earth in ways Isaac's line will not. The elders exchange glances, uncertain. This is not the answer they expected. They came prepared for defensiveness, for anger, for stubborn pride. Instead, they are facing a man who seems utterly convinced that he is exactly where God wants him to be. Then prove it, Shavsha says finally. Call the camp together, declare this publicly. Let everyone hear what you are claiming, because whispers and rumors are poisoning this place. If you truly believe this is God's work, then stand before your people and say so. Abraham meets his gaze without flinching. Tomorrow at midday, gather everyone, I will speak. The elders leave, and Abraham sits alone in his tent, feeling the weight of what he has just committed to, a public declaration, a line drawn in the sand. There will be no going back after this. Keturah finds him an hour later, Zimran asleep in her arms. She sits beside him, and for a long moment, neither speaks. They want you to choose, she says finally, between the old promise and the new one, between Isaac and us. Abraham shakes his head slowly. They don't understand. There is no choice to make. God isn't asking me to choose. He's asking me to hold both, to trust that his hands are big enough for all of it. And if Isaac never forgives you, the question cuts deep. Abraham's eyes glisten, but his voice remains steady. Then I will love him from a distance, and I will pray that one day he sees what I see. That love is not a betrayal of love, that blessing one son does not curse another, that God's table is larger than we imagine. Keturah looks down at Zimran, at his tiny face, peaceful in sleep. He will have brothers. she says softly. I feel it. This is not the last. Abraham places his hand on her shoulder. I know. God showed me 6 sons, 6 nations, and through them the world will be different. They sit together as the sun climbs toward noon, knowing that in a few hours everything will change, that Abraham will stand before his people and declare something that will divide them, that will force everyone to choose whether they believe God is still speaking or whether the patriarch has lost his way. The next day arrives bright and hot. The entire camp gathers in the central clearing, servants and elders and travelers and traders who happen to be passing through. Word has spread that Abraham will make an announcement, and curiosity has drawn a crowd larger than usual. Abraham stands in the center, Keturah beside him, Zimran in her arms. The sight of them together, the aged patriarch and his unlikely wife and their newborn son, sends a ripple of whispers through the assembly. Abraham raises his hand and silence falls. I have called you here because rumors have poisoned the air we breathe, he begins, his voice strong despite his years. I have called you here because truth deserves to be spoken in the light, not hidden in whispers and shadows. He gestures to Keturah and Zimran. This is my wife. This is my son, born of my seed, carried in her womb, brought into the world by the same God who gave Sarah a son when her body was long past the age of bearing. A murmur runs through the crowd. Some faces show awe, others show skepticism. I know what you think, Abraham continues. You think I am a fool. You think I have been deceived. You think this is scandal, not miracle. And I understand, because what God is doing here makes no sense. It defies nature. It defies logic. It defies everything you think you know about how the world works. He pauses, letting the words settle. But I have learned that God delights in the impossible. He takes barren wombs and fills them. He takes old bodies and breathes life into them. He takes what is dead and makes it live, not because we deserve it, not because we earned it, but because He is God, and He does what He pleases. Shavsha stands from where he sits among the elders. And what of Isaac? What of the son of promise? Does this not divide what God has joined? Abraham turns to face him directly. Isaac carries the covenant of blessing. Through him, the nations will be blessed. Through him, the land will be inherited. Through him, the Messiah will one day come. That promise stands. It has not changed. It will never change. Then what is this? Shavsha gestures to Keturah and Zimran. This, Abraham says, his voice rising with passion, is proof that God is bigger than one promise, bigger than one son, bigger than one lineage. I am the father of many nations, not just one, many. And Keturah's sons will carry a different part of that calling. They will be warriors, where Isaac's line are priests. They will be traders, where Isaac's line are shepherds. They will fill the east, where Isaac's line holds the west. God is not dividing his purpose. He is multiplying it. The crowd erupts. Some shout agreement, others shout protest. Voices clash and tangle, and for a moment, it seems the assembly might fracture entirely. But then a voice cuts through the chaos, young and clear and unexpected. Father! Everyone turns. Standing at the edge of the crowd, dusty from travel, his face a mask of conflicting emotions, is Isaac. The assembly falls silent. Abraham's breath catches. He has not seen his son in over a year, and the sight of him now, here in this moment, feels like an answer to a prayer Abraham barely dared to speak. Isaac walks forward slowly, every eye on him. He stops a few paces from Abraham, and for a long, terrible moment, no one knows what he will do. Then Isaac speaks, his voice shaking but audible. I heard what was happening. I heard the rumors, the mockery, the accusations, and I realized, he pauses, swallowing hard, I realized that if I let my grief divide this family, I become less than my mother taught me to be. Abraham's eyes fill with tears. Isaac turns to KETURAH, and the effort it costs him is visible on his face. "You are not my mother, you will never be my mother, but you are my father's wife." And that, he breathes deeply, is enough. He reaches out and places a hand on Zimran's head, the gesture tentative but real. "This is my brother." Isaac's declaration doesn't heal everything. Wounds this deep don't close with a single gesture, no matter how public or how brave. But it opens a door that had been sealed, and through that door, fragile light begins to seep. The camp erupts in murmurs after Isaac speaks. Some are moved to tears, others remain skeptical, wondering if this is genuine reconciliation or political theater. But Abraham doesn't care what they think. His son is here. His son has spoken. And for the first time in over a year, the crushing weight on Abraham's chest lifts just enough to let him breathe. Isaac stays for 3 days. He doesn't move into the camp. He sets up his own tent on the outskirts, maintaining a careful distance. But he comes to the morning prayers. He sits at the evening meals. He holds Zimran awkwardly, like a man who has forgotten how to be gentle, and watches as the infant grasps his finger with surprising strength. On the 3rd evening, Isaac and Abraham sit alone by a small fire, the camp settling into sleep around them. For a long time, neither speaks. The silence between them is heavy with everything unsaid, but it's not hostile. It's the silence of two people trying to find their way back to each other across a chasm of grief. Finally, Isaac breaks it. "I thought I had lost you," he says quietly, "not to death, to something worse. To forgetting. I thought you were erasing her." Abraham's voice is thick. "I could never erase her, Isaac. She is written into every breath I take. But I couldn't stop living just because she stopped. I didn't know how to explain that to you. I still don't." Isaac nods slowly, staring into the fire. "When you took KETURAH as your wife, it felt like you were saying mother wasn't enough. That what you had with her wasn't sufficient, that you needed more. That's not what it meant. I know that now." Isaac's jaw tightens. But knowing it and feeling it are different things. Abraham reaches over and places his weathered hand on Isaac's shoulder. "Your mother taught me that love doesn't run out, that blessing one person doesn't curse another, that God's heart is big enough to hold everyone. I'm trying to live what she taught me. Even though it's hard, even though it hurts." Isaac looks at his father, really looks at him, and sees something he hasn't allowed himself to see in years. Abraham is old, fragile. The man who once seemed immortal, who survived famine and war, and the knife raised over his only son, is mortal after all, and he won't be here forever. "How much time do we have?" Isaac asks, and the question carries layers of meaning. Abraham smiles sadly. "I don't know, but however much it is, I don't want to spend it separated from you." Isaac swallows hard, fighting back emotion. "Neither do I." They embrace then, stiffly at first, and then with the desperate grip of two people who have been drowning and finally found solid ground. When they pull apart, both have tears on their faces, and neither tries to hide them. Isaac leaves the next morning, returning to his flocks in the Negev, but before he goes, he stops at KETURAH's tent. She stands at the entrance, Zimran in her arms, watching him approach with wary eyes. "I can't promise I'll be a good brother to your sons," Isaac says without preamble. "I can't promise I won't struggle with jealousy or resentment, but I can promise I won't abandon them. They are Abraham's seed. That makes them mine to protect, whether I like it or not." KETURAH's eyes glisten. "That's more than I expected, more than I deserve." "It's not about deserving," Isaac says. "It's about honoring the man who taught me what faithfulness looks like. Even when I don't understand it." He turns to leave, then pauses. "My mother used to say that God's plans are too big for human understanding, that we only see part of the pattern. I hated that idea. I wanted everything to make sense. But maybe," he looks back at KETURAH and Zimran, "maybe she was right. Then he's gone, a figure shrinking into the southern hills, and KETURAH stands holding Zimran, feeling as though something impossible has just occurred. Not full reconciliation, not complete acceptance, but a beginning, a seed planted in rocky soil that might, against all odds, grow. The months that follow are quieter. The initial scandal fades into background noise as the camp adjusts to its new reality. KETURAH is pregnant again, her belly swelling with a second child, and this time the whispers are softer, less cruel. Once is a scandal. Twice begins to look like a pattern. And patterns, even uncomfortable ones, become familiar. She gives birth to a second son, and they name him Jokshan, which means snarer or fowler. Then a third, Medan, which means judgment. Then a fourth. And this one Abraham holds with particular reverence, because the name that comes to him is Midian, echoing KETURAH's own heritage, the people she fled from decades ago. Your father's people will live again through him, Abraham tells her as she cradles the infant. But they will be different. They will know the God you found. KETURAH weeps, not from sadness, but from the strange grace of it. She ran from Midian in shame and fear, abandoning the fire altars and the cruel rituals. And now God is giving her a son who will carry that name forward, redeemed and transformed. A fifth son comes, Ishbak, which means he releases, and finally a sixth, Shuah, which means prosperity. 6 sons, just as the dream promised. 6 nations waiting to be born. The camp is louder now, filled with the sounds of children, the chaos and joy and exhaustion that comes with new life. Abraham is 150 years old, and there are days when he can barely rise from his mat, when every joint aches and every breath feels like labor. But when his sons climb on him, when they pull at his beard and laugh at his stories, he feels young again, not in body, but in spirit. KETURAH watches him with those 6 boys, and she sees what others cannot. This is not an old man's folly. This is not a final desperate grasp at relevance or virility. This is a man completing a calling, fulfilling a word spoken decades ago. I will make you the father of many nations, not one nation, many, but as the boys grow from infants to toddlers to young children, another reality becomes clear. Isaac's visits grow less frequent. He sends messages, polite and formal, asking about Abraham's health and sending gifts for the boys. But he does not come. The initial reconciliation has stalled, frozen at a distance that neither brother nor half-brothers can quite cross. The boys notice Zimran, the oldest and the most perceptive, asks one day, "Why doesn't our brother Isaac visit us?" Abraham's face tightens. He has his own life, his own family, his wife Rebecca, his flocks. It's a long journey from the Negev, but Zimran is 9 years old now, old enough to hear what isn't being said. He doesn't like us. KETURAH, sitting nearby and mending a torn tunic, looks up sharply. That's not true. Zimran turns to her, his young face serious. Then why does he stay away? It's a question no one has a good answer for. The truth is complicated. Isaac has tried, he genuinely has. But every time he thinks about traveling to Beersheba, about sitting with KETURAH's sons and watching them laugh with his father, something in his chest tightens. It's not hatred. It's not even resentment anymore. It's something harder to name. Fear, maybe. Fear that there isn't enough room in Abraham's heart for all of them. Fear that by accepting these brothers, he's somehow diminishing his own place. Fear that his mother's memory is being slowly overwritten by new memories, new stories, new sons who didn't have to wait 90 years to be born. So he sends gifts instead of himself. He writes letters instead of visiting. He keeps his promise to protect them, but from a distance, as if proximity might somehow threaten the fragile peace he's built with his own grief. Abraham sees it. KETURAH sees it. And slowly, painfully, the 6 boys begin to see it too. They are Abraham's sons, but they are not Isaac's brothers, not really, not in the way that matters. The realization changes them. Zimran grows quieter, more watchful. Jokshan becomes fierce, quick to defend his mother and his brothers against any slight and real or imagined. Medan withdraws into himself. Midian, the fourth son, begins asking questions about his mother's people, about the Midianites, about the world east of Beersheba that they've never seen. One evening, when the boys are all asleep and Abraham and Keturah sit alone under the stars, she asks the question that's been growing in her for months. What will happen to them after you're gone? Abraham doesn't pretend not to understand. Isaac will inherit the covenant, the land, the blessing, that's already decided. And our sons? Abraham is silent for a long time. Finally, he says, they will go east. I've known it for a while now. I've been trying not to think about it, but I can't avoid it anymore. They can't stay here, not after I'm gone. Isaac's inheritance must be clear, undisputed. If our sons remain, there will be conflict, division, maybe even bloodshed. Keturah feels her throat tighten. You're sending them away. I'm releasing them, Abraham says gently. There's a difference. They won't go empty-handed. I will give them gifts, resources, knowledge. I will send them east, toward the lands where your people once dwelt, and they will build something new there, something that belongs to them, not borrowed from Isaac's shadow. Will they understand, or will they think you're abandoning them? Abraham's voice breaks. I don't know, but I pray they'll see that this is love, not rejection. That sometimes the greatest gift a father can give is the space to become who you're meant to be, free from the weight of someone else's calling. Keturah leans against him, and they sit in the darkness, two people who have built something beautiful and complicated and costly. 6 sons born from impossible promise, 6 futures waiting to unfold. But the path forward is unclear, shrouded in uncertainty and approaching loss. Because Abraham is dying. Everyone can see it now. The man who once strode across deserts and led armies now moves slowly, carefully, as if each step requires negotiation with his body. His mind is still sharp, his faith still unshaken, but his flesh is failing. And in the shadows, beyond the firelight of Beersheba, forces are gathering. The Midianites have heard rumors about Keturah's sons. They've heard the name Midian given to the 4th boy. They've heard whispers that one of their lost daughters is alive, married to the Hebrew patriarch, mother of a new generation. And they're coming, not in friendship, not in reconciliation, but to reclaim what they believe was stolen, to demand an accounting, to confront the woman who fled their altars and the man who harbored her. A caravan appears on the eastern horizon one scorching afternoon. 50 warriors draped in crimson, bows slung across their backs, their faces hard with purpose. At their head rides a man Keturah recognizes even from a distance, even after 3 decades. Her brother, Ephah, chief of the Midianite clans, and he has not come to celebrate. Abraham, standing beside Keturah as the caravan approaches, feels her entire body go rigid. Who is that? Her voice is barely a whisper. My past, coming to collect what it thinks I owe. The siege has begun, and with it, the final test of whether the promise spoken in darkness can survive the light of day. The Midianite caravan enters Beersheba like a gathering storm that has been building for 3 decades. 50 warriors dressed in crimson cloaks, their faces marked with the ritual scars of fire priests, dismount in synchronized silence. The air grows thick with tension as Abraham's servants scatter, uncertain whether these visitors come in peace or war. At the head of the caravan walks Ephah, chief of the Midianite clans. He is older than Keturah remembers, his beard streaked with gray, deep lines carved around his eyes from years of desert sun and command. But those eyes are unchanged, hard, unforgiving, the eyes of a man who does not forget betrayal and does not forgive abandonment. He stops 10 paces from where Abraham and Keturah stand together at the center of camp. The entire assembly has gathered now, servants and elders and travelers, forming a wide circle around the confrontation. Aepha's gaze locks on his sister, and for a long moment the only sound is wind moving through tent fabric and the nervous shifting of horses. "Sister," he says, and the single word carries no warmth, no relief, only cold accusation. 30 years. We burned offerings for your soul. We mourned you as dead. We carved your name into the stone of grief and moved forward without you. And now I hear from traders and travelers that you are alive, that you are the wife of the Hebrew prophet, that you have borne him sons. His voice rises, cutting across the assembled crowd. Sons you named with our tongue, sons who carry the blood of Midian in their veins, sons you had no right to create without the blessing of your people, without the permission of your family, without honoring the covenant you swore as a child. Keturah's spine straightens. She does not lower her eyes or step back. Her voice, when it comes, is steady despite the trembling in her hands. I am no longer yours to bless or curse, brother. I left that life. I chose a different path. I found a different God. You fled. Aepha spits the word like poison. You abandoned your calling. You were chosen as a priestess, selected by the elders, prepared for the sacred fires. You were marked for holy service, and you ran like a coward in the night, leaving us to explain your absence, leaving us to bear the shame of your rejection before the fire god and all our people. Abraham steps forward now, placing himself partially between Aepha and Keturah. His voice is calm but carries an unmistakable edge of warning. She is my wife. Whatever happened before she came to me is between her and the God who called her here. You will speak to her with respect, or you will leave my camp immediately. Aepha's laugh is bitter and sharp. The Hebrew patriarch, the great Abraham, the man who speaks to invisible gods and demands the world believe him without question. Tell me, old man, do you even know what you married? Do you know what she was, what she did, what she fled from in the darkness? He turns back to Keturah, his gaze boring into her. Tell him, sister. Tell your husband about the fire. Tell him about the children we fed to the flames when the rains failed. Tell him about the screams that filled the valley when the god demanded purity and blood. Tell him why you really ran. Tell him what your hands have done. Keturah's face drains of color, but she does not flinch or look away. Her voice comes out raw but clear. I ran because your God is not God, because what you call sacred is slaughter dressed in ritual. Because I could not watch one more infant placed on burning coals and call it worship. Because I could not scrub one more mother's tears from the altar stones and pretend it was bringing blessing. The words land like stones thrown into still water, ripples of shock spreading through the assembled crowd. Abraham's servants exchange horrified glances. Even Abraham, who knew Keturah carried a dark past, feels the full weight of what she has just revealed settle over him like a heavy cloak. Aepha's jaw clenches, muscles working beneath his beard. You dare speak against the ancient ways, against the covenant our fathers made with the God of fire since time beyond memory. You dare call sacred what generations have honored with their blood and obedience. Your fathers made a covenant with fear, Keturah says, and now her voice shakes but holds firm like a rope pulled taut, with cruelty disguised as devotion, with death dressed up as life. I found a God who does not demand the blood of innocents to prove his power, who speaks in promises, not threats, who gives life instead of consuming it. That is why I left. That is why I will never, never return. Aepha's hand moves to the hilt of his blade. And your sons? The ones who carry our blood in their veins, who bear names from our tongue, do they belong to your new God or to the people you betrayed? Who has the right to raise them, to teach them, to shape what they become? They belong to themselves, Abraham says quietly, but with absolute firmness, stepping fully between Ephah and Keturah now, and to the God who gave them breath. You have no claim here, Midianite, no right, no authority. Ephah's eyes narrow to slits. Then let us test that claim. Let us see if your God truly defends what you say is his. He draws a knife from his belt, not to attack, but to drag the blade across his own palm, blood welling dark and immediate. This is the old way, the ancient Midianite custom of forcing divine judgment. Two parties make opposing claims. Blood is shed to seal the challenge. And the gods, whichever gods are real and watching, are expected to intervene, to show favor, to vindicate the righteous and condemn the false. I call for testimony, Ephah announces loudly, addressing not just Abraham but the entire gathered assembly, both camps now watching in rigid attention. Let Keturah stand in the circle of witness. Let her defend her choice before both our people and yours. Let her explain why she abandoned her blood, her calling, her sacred duties sworn before fire and witness, and if she cannot, if your God does not defend her with a visible sign, then I claim my right as eldest brother to take her sons back to Midian, to raise them among their true people, to teach them the ways she rejected and train them in the covenant she abandoned. Abraham's blood runs cold. This is not merely a request or a threat. It is a legal challenge, recognized by ancient custom across multiple cultures, binding in the eyes of witnesses from both peoples. If Abraham refuses the challenge, it will appear as weakness, as though his God cannot defend what he has supposedly built. But if he accepts, everything hangs on Keturah's testimony and whatever sign God may or may not choose to give. And God has been known to be silent at crucial moments, testing faith to its breaking point. Abraham looks at Keturah. Her face is set with terrible resolve. She nods once, a small gesture that communicates, I am ready. I will face this. Eliezer appears suddenly at Abraham's side, his voice urgent and low. Master, you cannot agree to this. It is a trap. If God does not send a visible sign, something the crowd can witness and none can deny, they will take the boys. They will claim divine judgment has gone against you, that their gods have proven stronger than yours. Abraham's voice is steady as stone. Then God will have to speak, just as he did when I almost lost Isaac on the mountain, just as he did when Sarah laughed at his promise, just as he has done every single time I have stepped to the edge of the impossible and waited for his voice. Ephah watches this exchange with cold satisfaction creeping across his features. He knows exactly what he is doing. He knows that the Hebrew God is not famous for theatrical interventions, not in the way the fire gods were said to manifest, with smoke and flame and immediate, terrifying presence that left no room for doubt. He is gambling that silence will be interpreted as absence, that the lack of a sign will be read as divine abandonment, that doubt will harden into condemnation. The circle forms slowly, deliberately. Abraham's camp arranges itself on one side, Midianite warriors on the other, and between them an open space of trampled dust where Keturah now walks to stand alone. The sun is lowering toward the western horizon, casting long shadows that stretch across the ground like reaching fingers. Dust swirls in the evening wind. The 6 sons, Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shuah, are held back by servants, but watch from the edge with wide, frightened eyes. They are too young to fully understand the legal mechanisms at work, but they sense the danger with the instinct of prey, sensing a predator before it strikes. Zimran, the eldest at 12 years old, holds his youngest brother Shuah's hand tightly, his jaw set in an expression that eerily mirrors his father Abraham's face in moments of crisis. Ephah stands at the eastern edge of the circle, the Midianite warriors arrayed behind him like a crimson wall. Keturah, daughter of Midian, Blood of my blood, flesh of my flesh. You abandoned your people when they needed you. You fled your sacred calling. You rejected the covenant of fire our ancestors have maintained for generations uncounted. Now defend yourself. Tell these gathered people why you ran. Tell them what you were running from. Tell them why your sons, who carry Midianite blood through your veins, should remain with a foreign patriarch and his foreign god instead of being raised among their own kind, learning their own ways. Every eye turns to KETURAH. She stands alone in the center of the circle, and for a long moment she is utterly still, a statue carved from desert stone. Her hands, which have been trembling at her sides, slowly uncurl and relax. She closes her eyes, breathes deeply from her belly, and when she opens them again, there is something different in her gaze. Not defiance, not anger. Something deeper and harder to name. Clarity, perhaps, or surrender, or both at once. I was 9 years old, she begins, her voice quiet, but somehow carrying clearly in the stillness that has fallen over the assembly. When they first brought me to the altar, they told me I was chosen, special, blessed by the fire god himself. They said I had been marked from birth for sacred service, that my life would bring honor to my family and protection to my people. I believed them because I was a child, and children believe what the adults who are supposed to protect them say is true and good. Her voice does not waver, but her hands clench into fists at her sides, knuckles going white. They taught me the rituals, step by careful step, how to prepare the offerings with precise movements, how to chant the old words in the language that was supposed to open the way between our world and the realm of fire. They taught me how to wash and anoint. They taught me how to hold an infant, how to position small limbs so that when you placed the child on the burning stones, it would die quickly. Mercifully, they said, as if there is any mercy in burning children alive to appease a God who never speaks, never answers, never shows his face. A visible ripple of horror moves through Abraham's camp like wind through grain. Even those who suspected KETURAH's past held darkness, who guessed she had fled from something terrible, had not imagined specifics this brutal, this concrete, this stained with innocent blood. I did it, KETURAH continues, and now her voice finally cracks, breaks open. I did it because they told me it was holy, because they said the God demanded purity, that without these sacrifices, the crops would fail, the rains would stop, disease would sweep through our camps, our people would perish. I did it because I was taught that obedience was the highest form of love, and that doubt was the fastest path to death. I did it. She looks down at her hands as if seeing them covered in blood, only she can see, because I did not know any other way existed. She raises her head and looks directly at Ephah now, holding his gaze without flinching. And then one day, I cannot tell you exactly when or why that day was different from all the others. I held a baby girl in my arms, 3 months old. Her mother had given her willingly, even gratefully, believing the sacrifice would earn divine blessing for her 3 remaining children. And as I stood there at the edge of the altar, feeling that infant's heart beating against my hands like a bird's wings, I heard her cry. Not the cry of fear or pain, the cry of hunger, of wanting her mother's breast, of wanting to live. A single tear slides down KETURAH's weathered cheek, catching the orange light of the setting sun. And I realized, standing there with death in my hands, that the fire had never spoken back. Not once, not ever. It never blessed anyone. It never promised anything. It never gave anything. It only consumed, it only took, it only destroyed. And we kept feeding it, kept burning our children, kept spilling innocent blood, not because the God demanded it, but because we were too terrified to stop. Because if we admitted that the fire was just fire, that the God was just our fear given a name and a face, then we would have to look at what we had done, the children we had murdered, the mothers we had broken, the evil we had called holy, Aoife's face is stone, but something flickers deep in his eyes. Memory, perhaps, or the first crack in a wall that has stood for 30 years. "So I ran," KETURAH says, her voice dropping almost to a whisper that somehow still carries to every ear, not in triumph, not in self-righteousness, not believing I was better than those I left behind. I ran in shame and terror and desperate hope that somewhere, somehow, beyond the lands I knew, there was a God who did not require the death of innocents to prove his power. A God who spoke in words instead of demanding blood. A God who made promises instead of threats. A God who could be approached without fear of being consumed. She turned slowly, addressing not just Aoife but the entire assembly, both peoples, all witnesses, and I found him. Not because I deserved to, not because I earned it through goodness or purity, but because Abraham, this man you see before you, told me a story about a God who called him by name out of darkness, who asked him to leave everything familiar and walk into complete unknown, who promised him descendants like the stars even when his wife was barren and ancient, who tested him to the very breaking point on a mountain with a knife raised over his only son, and then at the final moment said, "Stop, stop. I have seen your heart, Abraham. You do not have to kill your son to prove your love. I am not a God who delights in death. I delight in life, in faithfulness, in the impossible becoming possible." Her voice rises now, gaining strength and power. That is the God I found. Not through fire that burns, but through faithfulness that builds. Not through fear that paralyzes, but through covenant that liberates. Not through death that ends everything, but through promise that opens futures where none existed before. And my sons, she turns and points to where her 6 boys stand watching with terrified faces. My sons are not prisoners of my blood. They are not debts owed to gods who never existed, who never spoke, who never cared. They are gifts from the God who gives life freely, who creates futures out of barren places, who calls things that are not as though they already were. The silence that follows is absolute and crushing. Not even the wind dares to move. Every person in both camps stands frozen, barely breathing, processing what they have just heard. Aoife stares at his sister across the dusty space between them, and for the first time since he arrived, the hardness in his face cracks, just slightly. Just enough to reveal something underneath that might be grief or might be recognition. "You really believe that?" he says, and it is not quite a question, more an expression of wonder at the depth of her conviction. "You truly, actually believe this Hebrew God is different from what we knew?" "I do not believe," KETURAH says quietly. I know he is different because I am still standing here, because I am still alive when I should have been consumed by guilt or caught and executed for abandoning my post, because my sons exist when I was told I was barren, because I am here, broken and remade, speaking truth when I spent decades speaking lies, instead of being consumed by the fire I fed for 20 years of my life. Aoife looks down at the ground, at the knife still gripped in his hand, at the blood drying dark on his palm and dripping slowly into the dust. "Then, let your God prove it," he says, his voice rough and thick. "Let him show a sign that all can witness. Let him demonstrate that you belong to him and not to the people of your birth, the blood of your blood, because words are easy, sister. Anyone can speak words. Signs are what separate truth from delusion, reality from wishful thinking." He looks up at the sky, now painted orange and purple by the descending sun, then at Abraham, then at all the assembled witnesses from both camps. "We will wait here until sundown. That gives your God time to act, to speak, to show himself. If he is real, if he truly claims you and your sons as his own, let him demonstrate it in a way none can deny or dismiss. Otherwise, he gestures to his warriors, by the ancient law of our people and the binding custom of blood challenge, witnessed by both camps, your sons leave with me at sunset. They will be raised as Midianites. They will learn the ways you rejected. They will know their true people. The assembled crowd shifts uneasily, nervous energy rippling through both camps. The sun is already low, perhaps 1 hour from touching the horizon and sinking below it. 1 hour for God to speak, 1 hour for a sign to manifest, 1 hour for the impossible to become visible. Abraham stands at the edge of the circle, his weathered hands clasped tightly together, his lips moving constantly in silent prayer that only he and God can hear. KETURAH remains standing alone in the center, her face turned upward toward the sky, tears drying on her cheeks in the desert wind. The 6 sons watch from where servants hold them back, hardly daring to breathe, their young faces frozen in fear, and the minutes begin to stretch like leather pulled tight. Nothing happens. The sun continues its slow, inexorable descent. Shadows grow longer, reaching across the circle like dark fingers. Still nothing manifests. No voice from heaven, no fire that does not consume, no angel appearing with drawn sword. Just silence and wind and the cruel passage of time. Eva's warriors begin to exchange glances with one another. Some smile slightly, barely containing their satisfaction, sensing victory approaching with the sunset. Abraham's servants begin to murmur among themselves, doubt creeping into their hearts like smoke seeping under a door. Even Eliezer, standing near Abraham, feels his faith wavering, wondering if this time God will choose silence, if this time the test will end in loss. The sun sinks lower, its bottom edge now touching the distant hills. 45 minutes have passed, then 50, then 55. KETURAH closes her eyes, no longer looking at the sky but turning inward, and her lips move in whispered prayer that only she and heaven can hear. If you are silent, I will still believe. If you send no sign today, I will still call you faithful tomorrow, because you do not owe me proof. You have already given me everything that matters. You gave me freedom from fear. You gave me love I did not earn. You gave me sons from a barren womb. If that is all I ever receive, it is enough. You are enough. The sun continues its descent. 5 minutes remain until it fully sets. 4, 3. Ephah's hand moves to his belt, preparing to give the signal to his warriors. Abraham's chest heaves with the effort of continued faith in the face of apparent divine silence. Then faint at first, almost mistaken for wind, a sound reaches them. Hoofbeats. Everyone turns as one, heads swiveling toward the southern road. A single rider appears on the crest of the hill, moving desperately fast, the horse lathered and heaving. The figure is backlit by the dying sun, and for a long moment no one can make out who it is, can only see the silhouette of rider and horse against the burning sky. Then the rider enters the camp at full gallop, scattering people from his path, and leaps from the horse before it even fully stops. The man stumbles, catches himself, and falls to his knees in the dust directly in front of Abraham, gasping for breath, his face streaked with sweat and tears. It is Isaac. Isaac doesn't speak at first. He kneels in the dust, chest heaving, sweat pouring down his face, his horse behind him trembling and lathered from being ridden nearly to death. His hands shake as he looks up at his father, then at KETURAH, then at the 6 young boys watching with terrified eyes. Father, he finally gasps, voice raw. I came as soon as I heard. A traveler said there were Midianites here. He said they were challenging your marriage. He said they wanted to take the boys. Abraham's voice breaks. Isaac, you didn't have to come. This isn't your burden. Isaac shakes his head violently, still catching his breath. Yes, it is. Because I realize something on the ride here. If I let hatred and fear divide this family, if I let my grief poison what you're building, then I become less than my mother raised me to be. He pushes himself to his feet and turns to face Ephah directly. The Midianite chief watches him with cold calculation, trying to understand what this unexpected arrival means. "My name is Isaac, son of Abraham, son of Sarah." He speaks loudly enough for both camps to hear. "I am the son of promise, the child of covenant, the one through whom nations will be blessed. That hasn't changed. That will never change. My father didn't diminish me by loving again. He honored what my mother taught him, that God's love doesn't run out, that blessing multiplied is not blessing divided." He turns toward KETURAH and the 6 boys, and the effort this costs him is visible in every line of his body. "You are not my mother," he says to KETURAH, voice thick with emotion. "You will never be my mother. No one could be, but you are my father's wife. You are the woman he chose after years of faithful mourning, and that makes you family, whether it's easy for me or not." He walks slowly toward the boys. They shrink back slightly, uncertain. Zimran stands protectively in front of his younger brothers. Isaac stops a few paces away and lowers himself to one knee so he's at their eye level. "I am your brother," Isaac says, voice cracking. "Your half-brother, separated by decades and different mothers, but your brother nonetheless. We share the same father. We share the same God. We share the same impossible story of life, coming from places where life shouldn't be possible." He reaches out slowly and places his hand on Zimran's head. The boy doesn't pull away. "These are my brothers," Isaac announces to the entire assembly, voice rising with conviction. "Sons of Abraham, seed of the patriarch, blood of the covenant. And anyone who tries to take them by force will have to go through me first." The silence that follows is absolute. Even the wind seems to stop, waiting. Ephah stares at this unexpected development, his careful plans suddenly thrown into chaos. He came expecting a divided camp, a weakened old man, a scandalized household ripe for challenge. Instead, he finds the son of promise standing in defense of these half-blood children. "This changes nothing," Ephah says, but his voice has lost certainty. The challenge was issued, blood was shed, the terms were set. A sign was demanded by sundown, and no sign was given. "No sign," Isaac's voice cuts like a blade. "I am the sign. I am the answer to your challenge. I am the son who was almost sacrificed on a mountain and lived. I am the child born to a 90-year-old barren woman. I am walking, breathing proof that the God of Abraham does impossible things. And I am here now, at this exact moment, after riding 3 days without stopping because something I cannot name drove me forward." He turns to Abraham. "Father, I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry. I let my grief become a wall between us. I let fear of losing you make me lose you anyway. I pushed away when I should have drawn close. Can you forgive me?" Abraham's eyes fill with tears. "There's nothing to forgive. My son, you were grieving. You were afraid. You were human. As am I." They embrace, and something breaks open in that moment. Some dam holding back more than tears. Abraham weeps against his son's shoulder, decades of grief and loneliness pouring out. Isaac holds his father and feels how fragile he's become. How little time might be left. When they pull apart, both faces are wet and neither tries to hide it. Abraham turns to Ephah, voice carrying authority that transcends age. "You asked for a sign. You demanded proof that God defends what is his. You set the terms and sealed them with blood. And God answered, not with fire from heaven, not with angels or voices or supernatural wonders, but with something deeper. He brought my son home. He turned a heart hardened by grief. He healed what was broken. He made what was divided whole again. If that isn't a sign of divine favor, then you don't understand the God I serve." KETURAH stands in the center of the circle, tears streaming down her face, watching this unfold like a miracle she didn't dare hope for. Her 6 sons cluster around her, clinging to her robes, and she places protective hands on their heads, one by one. Epher looks at the scene before him, at Isaac standing with his father and these half-brothers, at the tears and embrace and obvious authenticity of reconciliation. He looks at his own warriors, at the crimson cloaks and weapons and fire scars, and for the first time in his adult life, he questions what he knows about gods and power and how heaven speaks. "This is the sign," he asks, voice uncertain, almost vulnerable. "A son coming home?" Abraham meets his gaze steadily. Sometimes the most powerful miracles are the ones that happen in human hearts. The fire you serve consumes everything it touches. The God I serve restores what was broken. You asked which God is real. Now you have your answer. Epher is silent for a long time, wrestling visibly with something inside himself. Finally, he sheathes his knife and turns to his warriors. "We leave at dawn. We have no claim here," but before he walks away, he looks one more time at KETURAH across the circle. "You found what you were looking for, sister. I can see that now. I don't understand it. I may never understand it. But I see it." KETURAH's voice is soft but clear. "There's room at this table for you too, brother. If you want it, if you're willing to leave the fire and walk toward the light." Epher's face works with emotion he doesn't know how to express. "Perhaps one day, but not today. Today I need to return to my people and think about what I've seen here." He turns and walks back toward his warriors, and slowly, without ceremony, the Midianite camp begins to pack. The challenge is over. The blood oath has been answered, and somehow, impossibly, no one died. As the sun finally sets completely, painting the sky purple and deep blue, Abraham gathers his extended family close. Isaac stands beside him, one arm around his father's shoulders. KETURAH is on the other side, her 6 sons arrayed before them like a small army of hope. Abraham looks at each face in turn, at Isaac's weathered features, so like his own, at KETURAH's gentle strength, at the boys who carry futures he can barely imagine. He speaks quietly, words meant only for them. This is what God has been building all along. Not one nation but many, not one story but a symphony, not walls that divide but bridges that connect. You are all my sons, every single one of you. And through you, through all of you together, the world will be changed in ways I cannot yet see. Zimran speaks up. "Father Abraham, will Isaac stay with us now?" Isaac looks down at the boy and manages a small smile. "I'll visit often. I have my own flocks to tend, my own life in the south, but I won't be a stranger anymore. I'll be what I should have been from the beginning, your brother, your protector, your friend." The boys look at each other, and slowly, tentatively, smiles begin to appear on their young faces. This isn't everything resolved. This isn't all wounds healed, but it's a beginning, and beginnings are often more important than endings. Later that night, after the camp has settled and the boys are asleep and Isaac has gone to rest, Abraham and KETURAH sit alone under the stars. They don't speak for a long time, just sit in comfortable silence. Finally, KETURAH speaks. "I thought we'd lost them. I thought God was going to remain silent. I thought my past would swallow my future." Abraham takes her hand gently. "God is rarely early, but he's never been late, not once in all my years of following him. He tests us to the edge of breaking. Yes, he asks us to walk to the cliff and stand there waiting, but he has never, not once, let me fall when I took that final step of faith." They sit together as the stars wheel overhead. The same stars God once told Abraham to count, the same promise of descendants too numerous to measure. And Abraham realizes, perhaps for the first time fully, that the promise was never just about Isaac. It was always bigger, wider, deeper. Through Isaac will come priests and prophets, and eventually the Messiah himself. But through KETURAH's sons will come warriors and traders and kings of the East, spreading across lands Abraham will never see, carrying stories of the God who gives life to the dead and calls things that are not as though they were. Both lines are necessary, both are chosen, both are loved. The next morning, the Midianites depart as promised, riding east into the rising sun. Ephah doesn't look back, but Abraham, watching him go, prays that one day he will. Isaac stays for 7 more days. In that week, he teaches Zimran how to handle a staff properly. He tells all 6 boys stories about their grandmother Sarah. He sits with Abraham in the evenings and they talk, healing years of silence with shared words and comfortable quiet. On the morning Isaac prepares to leave, he calls all 6 boys together and speaks seriously. I am the heir of the covenant. Through me will come the line of blessing. But you are not lesser because of that. You are different, not diminished. You will go east one day. You will build nations of your own, and that is exactly as it should be. He pauses. Your father Abraham is old. He won't be with us much longer. When he's gone, I will honor his wishes. I won't fight you for inheritance or position. There's room enough in God's plan for all of us. Zimran steps forward. Will you remember us? When we're far away in the east, will you remember we're your brothers? Isaac's voice is thick. I will never forget, and I pray that one day, when our descendants are nations with their own kings and borders, they'll remember too, that we began as brothers, that the same blood flows in all our veins. That division is not destiny. They embrace then, all 7 of them, sons of Abraham, bound together by choice rather than necessity, by love rather than obligation. Isaac rides south that afternoon, but he's not the same man who arrived in desperate haste. Something has shifted in him, some burden lifted, some fear released. Abraham watches him go, and KETURAH stands beside him, and the 6 boys wave until their brother is just a speck on the horizon. Then Abraham turns to his wife and sons, and his face is peaceful in a way it hasn't been for years. Come, he says, there's still work to do, altars to build, stories to tell, futures to prepare for. As the sun climbs higher, Abraham teaches his sons how to stack altar stones properly. Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shuar work with focus and joy, building something that will outlast them all. And KETURAH watches, her hand resting where life once grew against all odds, and she whispers a prayer of gratitude to the God who found her in darkness, who called her by name, who gave her sons and purpose and a story worth telling. Maybe you feel like a footnote in someone else's narrative. Maybe you've been called secondary, late to the story, forgotten in the grand telling. Maybe you wonder if your life matters, if your children will be remembered, if your choices carry weight in heaven's eyes. But God doesn't write footnotes. He doesn't create extras or afterthoughts or minor characters. Every life he authors is a chapter, complete and necessary, woven into a tapestry too large for human eyes to see entirely. KETURAH wasn't Sarah's replacement. She was Sarah's echo and expansion, proof that God's love doesn't end when one story concludes, evidence that there's always more, always deeper, always wider than we dare believe. The 6 sons of KETURAH became the Midianites, master traders and fierce warriors of the East. One of them, Midian himself, fathered a nation that gave the world Jethro, the wise priest who counseled Moses. Through Midianite bloodlines came wisdom and warfare, trade routes and desert knowledge, contributions to the story that would have been impossible without this forgotten woman and her supposedly scandalous sons. The rejected are chosen, the forgotten are central, the late arriving are right on time. If this story has touched something in you, if you see yourself in KETURAH's shame and restoration, in Isaac's grief and reconciliation, in Abraham's faith that keeps walking even when the path is unclear, then let it remind you of this eternal truth. You are not forgotten. Your story is not over. And the God who creates futures from barren places is still speaking, still calling, still writing chapters in lives that others have dismissed as closed. Subscribe if you want more stories that reveal the hidden ones, the overlooked, the supposedly minor characters who turn out to be absolutely essential. Turn on notifications so you never miss when God shows up in unexpected places. And share this with someone who needs to hear that they're not a footnote, they're not forgotten, they're not too late. The God who remembered KETURAH remembers you.